Good afternoon, relatives. David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're kind of having a little bit of a internet issue here. Sorry about that. Um, Good afternoon, relatives. I just want to welcome our Wakayeska, Mr. Richard Two Dogs Mayate, to today's teaching, which is sponsored by the South Dakota Humanities. And I will hand this off to my ate. Let me make you a co-host. Okay, ate, you are ready to go.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Okay, we'll start at this time. So this is going to talk about the when they brought the sacred pipe to us, Canupa, Nunkahi Piheha, we say in our language. And the first pipe that came was called the Tehinchila Hohu Chanupa. So it's actually a leg bone of a buffalo calf. And it was later that we made the pipes from the chanupas from pipestone and wooden stems. But the first pipe is from the leg bone of a buffalo calf. And the last time documented time that anybody seen that pipe is in the 1930s. Uh, a man named John Fire, his name is Lame Deer. He wrote a book called Lame Deer Seeker of Visions. And um, he talks about he was told by the spirits to go to green grass. Uh, and he had this real strong urge to go. So he started walking and hitchhiking, and he encountered a blizzard while he got there, right around in the evening, just after dark. He got to Greengrass, South Dakota, and Greengrass is on the Cheyenne River reservation, uh, north of the town of Eagle Butte. It's about 15 miles, maybe or so. Um, and it's out in the way out in the prairie by itself. And this is where the keeper at that time, her name was Martha Bad Warrior. And he came and he knocked, and the woman was a unchi. She was an older woman. And so he went into she told him to come in, and she was sitting on a bed, and she was really sick. So he said that I had a dream that a young man is coming, and he's coming from the south, um, and he's going to help me. So um, she unwrapped the bundle with the buffalo leg pipe in there, and so John Fire, a lame deer, was able to see the pipe, and he said it was very, really old and brittle. So she handed it to him, and he cradled it into his hands, and he said it was a real old pipe, and he said he could feel the power of the pipe to the point where it felt like it made his hair stand up. And so he prayed with the pipe, and they had like a private ceremony, and he doctored her, and uh, she was able to get well, and she lived a few more years uh, into the early 40s, somewhere late 30s, early 40s. And he said that he could tell that it possessed a lot of power because he could feel it through his body, and like waves of electricity. And so she recovered, and later on during uh, the drought of the 1930s, right before World War II, uh, they had a ceremony to end the drought. So she brought out a pipe, and there's pictures of her setting, holding it, um, and uh, but the pipe isn't the one that's made of the calf leg of the uh, buffalo. It's a long pipe. It's made from pipestone, and it has a long stem on it. And she's holding it, and these people are coming through and uh, touching the pipe and praying, and you could see these older people and children and the young people coming through. And the story goes that she sat out there for over 3 hours in the sun, uh, holding the pipe, and the people came through and touched the pipe. And the story goes that afterwards, she became really ill, probably sunstroke or something, but she got really sick, and she never recovered. And on her deathbed, her relatives was crying, and they said that that she shouldn't have done it. She shouldn't have sat out there that long and got sick from it. And now she was really really weak, and she was dying. But she told him that what they were asking for was a lot to stop this drought, and people were like starving, and horses and animals were dying. So she told him that someone had to give something in return to the spirit people in order for them to reverse what was happening. So but, it goes without saying, even though people don't say it, is that she exchanged her life for what she was asking for. So the story goes that um, how the pipe was brought to us, the sacred pipe, uh, was two young men go out because there was no buffalo. The buffalo went away, and this would happen periodically throughout the history of our people. Is that suddenly the buffalo vanished for whatever reason or other, and they so the people go hungry then because there's no food. So these young men were out looking for a buffalo, and they met this a young woman, and there's many different versions. How many different versions have you heard? I always ask of people, and a lot of people have different versions, and they tell some of it is according to their band or their Tio Spy, and um and today's world we seem to we've come to be colonized like the Washichu, where we think, well, my version's the real way and the right way. But it wasn't like that long ago in our grandparents and great grandparents' time. They would tell the story, and even if a person heard a different way, then they would nod and listen, and they wouldn't contradict this person and say, I never heard it that way. That's not how my grandma or my grandpa told me. They never did that. They always respected each other for what they had to say, and sometimes they would put their versions together to make one long version, and um, it would be interesting, that that they would come up with these things. So according to the different versions, these young men went out to look for buffalo, and then they met this young woman. And in some of the versions, like Fool's Crow's version, is she's dressed real beautiful in her clothes, her attire. She had like quilled moccasins and adornments of made from quills. And then another story says that according to Stanley Looking Horse, who is Orville's father, his story says that this young woman was naked, and of course, the story goes that she this young man, there was two of them. One of them thought impure thoughts of her, and the other one said, he said, no, Takahashi, he said, don't think like that. There's something different about this woman. But he persisted in his thoughts of her. And so she's told him, come forward and do whatever you're going to do. So he stepped towards her with his intentions of doing what he was thinking of doing, and a cloud enveloped him. And uh, they say that when this cloud went back up, this man was a skeleton. Hohuyalas expired. And from there, all the snakes uh, descended out of that place and went into the environment. So they say that before this time, there was no snakes. So that's one version. Uh, so according to one version, it says, who seen the pipe first? So it was the person that he brought it to, she brought it to, was the chief, whose name was Hmuya Mani, buffalo that walks upright. And there's different stories as who this chief was, but um, it's of course it was brought among the Hochwojo people who now live on the Cheyenne River Reservation. Uh, and this chief was chief of the Itazi Panicha, the nobles band, is what the story goes. Um, so this young woman instructed this one that survived, that didn't have bad thoughts, to go tell and inform the people that uh, she's bringing them a gift. And she said, when you look, when it's time for me to come, there will be a black cloud underneath the sun. So it was probably relatively a short time from the time he met her and to the time that she came. So there's different varying stories of which direction she came from. One person tells a story that she came from the north, and then another version is that she came from the west, and that is grandfather Fool's Crow's version, that she came from the west. And so he goes on to explain to people that that's why in the Sundance we come from the west direction, circle around, and go into the Sundance Lodge or the Sundance Arbor. And then we go to the left, always clockwise, everything. And we circle 4 times inside there before we start dancing towards the rising sun. And that is why there's people argue back and forth about, no, she came from the north, and some people say from the south, from the west. And then that's why the story goes that our Inipis face to the west in honor of the Buffalo Cowpipe woman. Uh, the Sant Kokahewi is her name uh, in our language. So um, so this is how the pipe came to us, and there's always controversy about people say, how old is the calf pipe? So according to Stanley Looking Horse, he said the same time that Jesus was born overseas in what they call the Holy Land was the same time that the ancient Canupa was brought to our people, which would make it about 2,000 years old or so. Uh, and then there's other stories that say, uh, according to the winter counts, there's a winter count that says a holy woman brought the sacred pipe, and it has it in the year 1750. So see, there's two versions there. One says that the pipe is 2,000 years old, and then according to a winter count, they say it was brought in 1750. One of the things is, are pipes the same as the cap pipe? Uh, yes, in the sense that it's what they call a aletka, uh, a branch or a root off of the sacred pipe that's at green grass. So we hold like the root of that pipe with our pipes, our own personal pipes. And so in that sense they are together, are the same, and that they possess a lot of power if you do it the right way, and if you respect your sacred pipe, then it has a lot of power. Uh, so according to the story, when she brought the pipe, she came from the west, uh, and she was singing, and in the words of the song that she sang is she was singing Nia Kitraia Moania was the song she was singing. And that gives reference to long ago when these mass herds of buffalo roamed the plains. And even today, if you get like 50 or 100 of them together when it's cold, they leave a cloud above the a buffalo from their breast, the steam. So there's a cloud above it. So this is what she's singing about, and wants that to always continue on this land. Was she always wanted on all of the buffalo to be numerous, and that our people will never go hungry. And so when the buffalo were almost decimated to extinction, the Lakotas made prayers that someday the buffalo will come back. And that's what the ghost dance was about. Was that ceremony was dedicated to the buffalo coming back. And so there's other versions about the ghost dance, and that was the main reason, according to the stories of the old people, is that they dance so that the buffalo will come back. And so they say, oh, it didn't happen. They were all killed at Wounded Knee, and it never happened. But their prayers were answered, because that not only did they pray about the buffalo coming back, but they prayed about the language always being here, and the customs and the beliefs will always be here. And so if you think about it, their prayers were answered because the buffalo are coming back. So now combined between the Sichangru uh, and the Oglalas, we have a combined herd, even though they're not together. They have their herd in Rosebud, and we have ours on our land. But there's close to 2,500 buffalo now between the two tribes. So, and there's still people speaking the language. We're still doing the ceremonies the best way we can and how we remember them. So their prayers were answered, and we're still here. Uh, when I say we're still here, it's not only physically but ideologically. What we believe and our worldview is still surviving, and there's people keeping it alive. Uh, so their prayer, they didn't die in vain, or their prayers were answered. So, along with the sacred pipe, he also brought the wok, the sacred laws. And that's what does this term mean? So it means the sacred laws of the Canupa and how we're supposed to conduct our lives. So there's 7 stars in the Big Dipper, which we call the Wichakihapi. There's 7 stars, and so there's each one of these stars represent a spiritual law or an ideal that we're supposed to cover. And it says, is it still practiced today? So yes, we still practice these laws. We still help each other, especially in times of need. And when a relative dies, we help each other and send them on their journey. Uh, and it's usually practiced all year round throughout the year. Uh, so it's not died out. We help each other uh, in giveaways and Sundance and like that. We still share with each other as a people. So where did we get these laws was from the Big Dipper, but there's also the woman that came to Earth with the sacred pipe. Her name was Wahohpi, but she came to Earth as Ptesami. Uh, and she was the daughter of Ampewi and Hahepiwi. She brought the 7 sacred laws to ensure Lakota Nation would be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Ptesant Hokahewi, Wahok came to earth as Ptesami, first white buffalo woman brought Canupa, sacred pipe, and teachings that go with it. So the story is that when she came and brought the sacred pipe, uh, the story that I heard from Stanley Looking Horse is the father of Orville, the keeper now, uh, is that she stayed among the people for 4 days, and each day she dedicated to a different stage of life that we believe, like say from 0 to 12, 12 to 21, 21 to 50, and then 50 plus is the elders. So she stayed one day with each group of people. So she stayed with the newborn, the babies, and the children up to 12 years old. And then from 12 to 21, she stayed. She stayed with them during that time and prayed with them, and she instructed them how to conduct themselves within the society, our society as Lakota people. And so she didn't just leave, and then but she stayed the 4 days, and then on the fourth day when she left is when she rolled on the ground 4 times. She would roll, stand up, and then she was first a black buffalo, and then she rolled and stood, and then she was like a reddish colored buffalo, and then she rolled and stood, and she had like a yellowish color to her coat, and then the last time she rolled and stood up, she was a white buffalo. So that's the 4 colors of our Toyate, the Lakota people. And so at the end, when she turned to white buffalo, she kept walking and then she vanished. So she did actually turn. So these buffaloes that are born now, they change color. Like they start out and they change to lighter, and a lighter color. So they're not always born completely white, but they eventually become white after they're here for a while. So the stories of how the pipe came, and there's different stories from each Tioshpaya that were shared long ago, and they exchanged these stories, and so there were different versions of her coming, and some of you might have heard different versions, but there's no one version set in stone that this is the way it was, and uh, mine is the right way, and like that contradict each other. They never did that. When I was young, I'd seen these groups of medicine men sit and talk and share things about medicines or different things that they encountered and how they handled it. There used to be medicine men that came to my uncle Joe Chips, who lived with us, and they would ask him his opinion and like that. So uh, they'd learn from him, and then he would teach them different things. And so they had that kind of a relationship long ago. So in the Wowahokukia of our people, Wowahokukia is when an elder stands up and talks to you. And this is different from like somebody standing up and chewing you out or giving you hell. When it's done in Lakota, it's kind of healing and it has meaning. Uh, that is why the Lakota language is so important because when you wahokukia somebody, it's not as harsh as people make it sound like how in Washichu, you know, people will stand up and give people hell, chew them out, and they know they're doing that, but that's how Washichu delivers his teachings in a harsh way and using punishment. So in the Wahokukia, examples of the spiritual law and the Wowahokukia, how they're taught. The Wowahokukia is taught by the mother, the father, the uncles, the aunties, the grandpas, and uh, the unchis, and even somebody older relative, like an older cousin, can give you Wowahokukia. So, Wa'onshila compassion, the examples is like one that we all understand and probably practice. Dua yatiel hi hanta woyatsukte. You will feed everyone who comes to your home. So we still practice that as a people. Uh, Mostly all people know that. Uh, Today, uh, very few people don't know that. Wowahukuke. So that is in alignment with Wa'onshila and compassion. Then there's Wowahwala, humility. So the Wowahukuke underneath that is Dohani ni glaoni hankdishni. Never boast of your achievements. Worksape wisdom. It says Ipuchnia wa echungshnio or yeah. Never do anything without first thinking it through. So ipuchnia is a word that something that you would do without thinking about it, like on impulse. Wachante ognaka, generosity. So the woahukunke is nanke nankun ichete eta iekchu ash wichayakukte. When someone comes to your home, feed them, even if it means you go without. So nankun is and ichete eta is like saying kind of saying even though you take it out of your mouth, meaning what you was gonna eat, you gave to your guests. So you took what was supposed to be in your mouth and gave it to your guests, but that doesn't mean you're gonna take food out of your mouth and give it to them. It means that what you was gonna eat, you give to them. So that's a woa hukunke. And I've seen that happen in my home. I've seen my mother feed everybody till everything was gone, and they had enough, and she a lot of times would get left out. And I seen my wife do that just recently, as last week. She fed everybody, and then when it came to her time to eat, then there was most of the food was gone. Uh, the next one is Watching tanka fortitude. Taku eheki hena takomani ichanuk tahecha. Whatever you say you're going to do, you must complete it. That's a hard one for us today because there's another saying among our people is O eye washte ash o echumshite. It's good. It's easy to say it, but it's hard to do. So, like an example will say, "Oh, we'll have this gathering on this day at this time," and then suddenly everybody has something to do, so only a few people show up. That happens a lot of times, and it even applies to like our ceremonies today. So everybody says, "Yeah, it'll be good to have a inipi so we could pray and do everything in a right way." And then when it comes time for inipi, there's about two people that show up, and so they take the brunt of everything. And maybe it's 10 below 0 outside. So when you say something among our ancestors, then you have to be true to your word, because if you're not, it gives you a reputation in the community as someone that doesn't follow through with what they say. And then the next one is wohitika, courage. Doketu ash bilihich alpo, no matter what, take courage. Doketu ash bilihich api was the way the females would say. And it's no matter what, take courage. Waohola, respect. Waioni pihanta nish ia nioni pikte. Lo or yeah. So if you respect yourself, people will respect you also. So you earn that respect by waioni, like treating people with respect. And then in turn, they say this person is a respectful person, so I'm going to respect him too. So that's something that is earned. It's not automatic. So how you interact with your society, your peers, the people around you, how you treat them is going to be how you will be treated yourself. There's lots and lots of these wowahokunke. These are just one example of them, but in every one of these spiritual laws, there's lots of wowahokunke. And someday I'm going to list what I know, list the ones I know. So we'll stop there with the story of the bringing of the Canupa. Short version. The reason I tell a short version is next month on the 21st of the month is the winter solstice, and this is when these stories should be told at night. But well, we took this time to do it now, so there's more in-depth teaching to this story, but we'll only go that far because we're telling these stories when it's not really the time.
Mm-hmm. Opila, and even that's in itself too for us to understand these stories are told at certain times of the year on our spiritual, like you said. I have a question, and I know You know, we're walking in two worlds, and I know even for a lot of our young relatives and even myself at times, because I live in this Western world, and they tell you, you know, one of the spiritual laws, like you said, is humility
Mm-hmm.
and be humble. And one of those teachings is to never boast about your achievements. I know
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of relatives that I see, and I know myself, I struggle with that. And you know, having that humility. And so I don't necessarily tell everything I do because I remember that teaching. However, in the Western world, they tell you you need to share these things to uplift or inspire others in your community. I just wanted to hear more from you about that and how we can better, you know, follow that spiritual law of humility.
Um, I think how I see it is that you teach by example. So they see these, especially these young people, they see, and even the children, they see. Uh, they say that you can tell a lot about a person is how they treat children and animals. And so they see these things, the children, and they'll call you on it too. And if you say you're going to do something, they're going to remind you of it. Uh, but they say the word for boasting is igla oniha.
Mm,
Igla oniha is like I think there's what they're saying is not to carry it too far, not to say, well, I did this and I achieved this and I did that and like that because the people see and the people know also. Just like
mm,
my father used to say that. He said, our people are like elephants. They never forget whether it's positive or negative. So if you did something like say 10, 12 years ago, people remember it. They never forget it. So that's something about our society as Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people is that we always we always remember people for what they did, whether it was good or whether it was bad.
mm. Wopila, like she. And I think, you know, even for us, as professionals and just working in this field and remembering that will, you know, like you said, will be acknowledged for the work that we're doing, that we don't need to go out and boast about it.
Yeah,
But the people, because the people can see it.
yeah.
And that alludes to like what you see all over social media and such, you know. And I think, you know, that has a lot to do with a lot of mental health issues. People feel like they're not living up to a standard or what have you, when in actuality, we're just living for, you know, Takashala and trying to walk in this way of life the best that we can, being a good relative. And this is a
Hmm.
good teaching just to remind myself even and remind all of us to be humble in that way. And at this,
Hmm.
so Wopila for that. And
Hmm.
maybe with that teaching for that evening teaching, that night teaching on summer or the winter solstice on December 21st, we can, you know, write out something or share that with everyone on here later when that story is told during that time.
Yeah,
And so that would be good.
yeah.
Um, does anyone have any questions for our Lakshmi Rick here and any of the teachings that he provided today? And you can put it in the Q&A. You can chat with us. If not, I'll continue to ask questions. I love visiting. Um, Another thing with you know, whenever you talk about um, when white buffalo cattlemen came to us, they saw me. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah,
They,
there's some.
and I never heard of that story of how she rolled and, you know, came certain colors and that. eventually became the colors of, our changleshka, our
Mm-hmm.
medicine with all of the colors that are in our way of life, right? I
Mm-hmm.
never heard, oh, that's my first time.
Yeah.
And so when she rolled, was it yellow first?
Oh, when she first rolled, it was black,
Black, then
red.
red, then yellow, then white.
Yeah. And they say that the holy men teach that that's the colors of enlightenment also. So
Mm,
so we come, they say we come through a darkness to this earth, and then when we leave, we go through a darkness, and then it gradually gets light, light, light. So it becomes like how we see today. So whenever babies are first born, then they're actually blind because they're still in that darkness. And they say that the old people say that if a baby can see right away, you're not going to be able to handle it mentally. So the
mm,
light and the sight gradually comes so they can adjust to it. Uh, and there's a story about a blind man that he was somehow miraculously cured by a thunderstorm. He was sitting on a porch and lightning hit him on a knee, and here it restored his eyesight. So they said mentally he almost went crazy because he wasn't able to handle everything he was seeing. So that adjustment, the babies have to go through that before they can completely adapt to this world. So when a baby is first born, for the first few hours, they're blind; they can't see.
mhm,
And then, so in our even in wisdom in what we understand of this world, uh, first part, maybe first 3 years of our life, uh, we're totally like unaware of things around us, like how things work. And as we learn, they say we go through those 4 stages of enlightenment to where, when we're elders, then our understanding is supposed to be pretty close to complete. So, the Washitu call it wisdom, but with our people, it's called enlightenment. So we understand things, whether it's through language or whether through experience or like that, we understand things.
mm, Wopila. We have a question here. Someone wants to know, could you explain more on Wo Lakota? What does that mean?
Woe, you break the word woe is collectively. So it's anything that you talk about that's within our worldview as Lakota people.
Mm,
Lakota is like anything that is Lakota, like whether it's language, ceremony, worldview. So when you practice Wo Lakota, then one of the first things is you practice these 7 spiritual laws. Uh,
mm,
and, and each day we're faced with that, whether we're going to be Lakota and we're not, or we're not. So if you say, well, I'm going to be Lakota, then one of the first things is the Wowahukuki of feeding people that come to your home.
mhm.
Like that, you start with those small steps. But some people translated Wolakota as peace, like making peace between people, which is true too. So, making peace between people is important, but also finding peace within your own self too.
Wopila. And we have another participant and attendee that said that was really interesting to me. Also, I can't wait to tell my children that story of her rolling, well, the buffalo rolling into different colors. They didn't hear that either.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. And so, does anyone else have any more questions for Lakshya while we have him? can type it in the chat, or else I'll ask another question. Um, like can you explain it a little bit more about the Canupa, about that teaching? I know that, Tony teaches me this, because I carry a Canupa and all of these things, but how it comes to be, or how you come to have a Canupa. I know you talked about it a little bit, but the responsibilities too, like those 4 teachings, those 4 laws that go with it when you carry a Canupa.
Yeah, the laws is you will never lie with the pipe. You will never hurt anybody with the pipe. Uh, if someone approaches you with a pipe to ask you to do something, then you'll always agree and you'll always do it. You do what they ask of you. So the 4 laws are part of that, how you carry the pipe.
And you never turn your back on the people, like you said.
Yeah, and you never turn your back on your people. So I mean, I'm not asking you, but how does one practice that every day? So uh, there's different ways that they need to come up with that and understand that for them to be to say that they do live by the laws of the Canupa sacred pipe. Is gossip a part of that? And there's people that carry a sacred pipe, but um, they don't treat people very well, like that. And there's some people that are cognizant of the laws, but only practice them when it's in a ceremonial setting. So on the outside, they think that in everyday life, they separate the two and think they could live any way they want to, because we're not in a ceremony now.
You need to walk this way of life every day.
Yeah.
I hear you, Lakshi.
I used to go and visit grandfather Fool's Cup, and I used to take him a wood because I was young then, and I chopped my own wood, and in fact, I sold it. And I was like a wood vendor. But I would take him free wood, and it would be split and stuff, and then him and his wife would feed me, and I would visit with him, and he would tell me a lot of stories, about a long time ago and our ways. And so I asked him one time, I said, Grandpa, did you ever have enemies when he was young? And he said, yeah, but they all died a long time ago. So I think what he was telling me is because he didn't carry anything in his heart. And so the grandfathers allowed him to live a long time and he said these people that carried hatred and like that, they didn't live very long. He said the hate consumed them, he said.
Mokpila, Lakshi, for that teaching as well. We have some more comments and questions here. Is there a book for young readers to learn more about the Canupa, the sacred pipe, that you could think of or recommend?
Well, if it's young readers, what they could do as parents is to get a book or any book. There's some about Fusco's life himself. Another book I would recommend to read to children is Black Elk Speaks, and then break it down into their level of understanding. So that's really a good book, and it teaches a lot about our people and like his visions, and It tells about his prophecies and what he's gonna see and what we're gonna see, and it's happening now. We're in that stage and era of where he saw a black cloud cover the people, and I think that we're living through that time now.
Mm. Wopila. Another attendee said, when I was a kid growing up in Eagle Butte, our school showed a movie talking about the white buffalo calf woman and her story. I was wondering if that movie was still shown in the schools. Have you heard of that movie?
Mm, I've seen one called Legends of the Sioux that shows
Of the
the
Sioux?
woman. Yeah, Legends of the Sioux, and it talks about the bringing of the pipe. They show it. I remember seeing that one in grade school. But I don't know if that's the same one she's talking about or he is talking about.
Mm. I didn't even know there was a movie.
Yeah,
Like
it's on YouTube.
YouTube? Okay.
Yeah.
So we can YouTube Legends of the Sioux. Opila. Another is today or nowadays, many of our relatives never receive teachings on the importance of thanking our elders for their teachings. Joseph Marshall in Quiet Thunder says the greatest arrogance of the present is to forget the intelligence of the past. What law would assist in the teachings of the
Assist in the teachings.
yeah, which one of our sacred laws?
It'd probably be workshop it, like passing on the knowledge of, of the people, the wisdom, passing on the wisdom of our people.
That will stop it. Yeah, and I think that also goes to, I just wrote down my notes to never boast about your achievements. That
Mm-hmm.
one, so that
Mm-hmm.
humility,
Mm-hmm.
that woke.
Workshop it, the
And like how
wisdom.
you always, we always say wopila and give thanks.
Yeah.
Mm. And that's almost like what you, I know, you teach us quite a bit here at Friends of the Children-He Sapa or Lakota. And I know one of the things you always teach us in our cultural interventions or our ceremonies is to always give wopila.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of that too, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is.
You wanna explain a little bit more for our attendees? I think
About
that means not just elders, wopila.
oh yeah. I think in everything, I think a lot of times when we walk the traditional way, there's a lot of things that the spirits help us with that we don't realize. And if we go back and look, you will see that where they helped you. And a lot of times it's not the way we want it to be, but it's in a different way that comes out to where it benefited, everybody. And so for everything, like when you wake up in the morning, like I give thanks that I was able to wake up, during the night I didn't make my journey. Or things like food and just simple things like that, even the drink of water that they say there's a saying that says you don't value something until you lose it. So there's people not able to eat, laying in the hospital. They're being fed through a feeding tube. They can't enjoy some type of food that they enjoy. Drinking water. There's people that can't drink water because they're laying in with tubes in them and like that. So those things like that are simple things, but they're everything like that is a gift. So give thanks for that everything. And those old men like Wolfscrow, they always make that food offering before they eat and give thanks. He talked English, sometimes people thought he never talked English, but I seen him pray in English one time. And he said he called the spirits poor soul. Said, this is
You're
for you, all the poor souls.
the poor souls.
Yeah.
Wopila. And then we have some comments just saying Wopila, Wopila for the teachings. Another question, what do the different parts of the Canupa symbolize?
The bowl symbolizes the female. The stem symbolizes the male. So, as in all of creation, when you join them together, from it comes life. So, when you join the stem to the bowl, you're praying for life, and life will come from it. Just like in any species of our world, like whether it's animal or human, when you join female and male together, then you have life. So that's what it symbolizes. So there's like say, and then how you tie a feather on a Canupa depends on what you're asking for. So like if you tie a feather towards to the mouthpiece on top, you're asking for healing. If you tie the feather in the middle of the stem, you're asking for understanding. And then if you tie the feather where the stem goes into the bowl, then you're praying for peace, like between people. So what they call Lakota, the peace between people.
Opilan. Is that kind of, would they tie it there when they're doing, I guess, going back to the history, like the peace pipe, when they would do that, like you
Yeah,
said, between
yeah,
nations?
between nations. So they said when we signed the 1851, 1868 treaty, those elders, those leaders tied their uh, feathers on the stem where it goes into the bowl, because
Hmm.
that's what they wanted.
Hmm. Opila. Okay. Other questions. Will this recording be available later? Yes, it will be. We'll have this up on our website. We'll share it on our social media. Won't be left for like she. And will there be more teaching sessions after the solstice? And yes, well, like she will, we can talk about that, but providing that information about, we'll have a teaching next month. And like she, would it be appropriate to talk about the winter solstice after or before?
Probably before.
Or so
Yeah.
we okay, so our next monthly session, if like she we could talk about the winter solstice, that'd be
Okay.
appropriate.
Yeah.
And then thank you so much. There's someone from Paris and France, and you're wow, for all you give us. I feel I'm so close to your heart. Take care and please continue to give us your knowledge. You can Pilama
Mm.
Sonia. Paris, France.
Mm. Probably my
Opila.
relative.
Probably relative. Yeah. And so, well, we are towards the end of the hour with like she, Rick, Two Dogs, Hmuya Mani, and Wopila like she for these teachings. I know that
Mm.
helps us as individuals, as organizations working within the indigenous realm and trying to be good relatives and providing these cultural interventions and like you said, just trying to walk in Lakota or being good relatives. These are all good reminders, and not only just in our indigenous ways of life, and I talk about this, but universal laws, being humble, being, having that courage,
Mm.
having having that fortitude and all these things. It's to be a good person altogether. And so I enjoy learning from you. And everyone, there's a short survey that comes out after these teachings, if you would mind taking your time, because that's how we're able to provide these teachings. We'd appreciate it. And tanka Lakshi, until next time.
Okay.
We'll see you soon, but for
All right.
everyone else, have a teaching next month.
Take care, everybody.
Oksha Ake.
Oksha.